Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished entrepreneur from Bangalore, India, Mr. Anshuman Das. Anshuman, welcome to the show.
Pleasure talking to you, Ashutosh. Look forward to an interesting discussion.
Thank you. Anshuman is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Careernet. So, Anshuman, let's start by a question I'm sure you have been asked many times. What is the story behind founding Careernet and what motivated you to start this company?
So Ashutosh, me and my other co-founder Rishi, who also happens to be my elder brother, I did my bachelor's from IIT Delhi in year 1998. Rishi did his bachelor's from IIT Roorkee in 1997. It was a time when entrepreneurship and unemployment would have been very synonymous with no VC funding or a no playbook. I think at that point in time, we were a lot driven by our interest and listening more to the heart and mind than to our mind. And we got good cozy jobs from our campuses in IT. And that was a time when IT was just opening up. I had my visa stamped through Goldman Sachs to go for a New York assignment for 3 years. And I and Rishi met over a Diwali, and he asked me, "Are you sure you want to do this for the next 3 years? And because if you do that, then there is no looking back. And is this something you love?" And I think that question really hit me and said that, look, truly speaking, this is not something I want to do the rest of my life. It just confines me to the impact which I can make. And if I go back and look, what I and Rishi had been at the college days was not to confine. I had a stream of textiles which was attached, and I didn't really love what was there. So I just figured out an area where I could excel in the institute. Same with Rishi. So we realized that we have been more listening to our heart and mind, and we can't be like confined to that degree. And I think we were trying to find out what next we could do while we have a cozy job, and that led to the journey and starting of Careernet. So
fantastic. And Careernet as a talent solutions provider, how does it differentiate itself from other competitors in the market?
So, the time when we started out, I think it was primarily, Ashutosh, I would say, a physical offline world which was there, and tech was not something which was very synonymous. So we essentially, even in 2001, were one of the first companies when we were like a 5 people team. We said that we will actually make our own recruitment system because we believe that unless until we really want to scale up, we really cannot do it in an offline physical manner. And the time when we started out, there were about more than 10,000 plus recruitment firms, and the largest size of the recruitment firm would have been about 70, 80 people, and 99% of the people who were less than 10 people team. And what we realized that there is a huge opportunity for us to be in this space, but probably we have to think about how do we scale about. I think that was one of the most important thing when we started out, that we saw an opportunity that this can essentially scale, and we ensured that tech should be the epicenter of it. So two things. One is we started focusing on really the top spectrum talent, and coming in from IITs, that gave us the edge, and coming in from an engineering background, it also gave us the edge that we could connect and be there. And we remain focused as always today also on the top tier talent in the country. Second, we, I think, used technology to a larger degree to scale our operations. Third, I think we have been fairly lucky to still have the first 25 guys still working with us. We have more than about, I would say, 25 plus people who have spent 20 years with the company, and more than 50 plus people who have spent 15 years with the company. And I think somewhere they felt that this is a larger purpose they are working for. And we have been very fortunate to have people like them in our team. And I think when we started out, the timing was right, the location was right. So you really don't see when you start out, but when you really go back and connect the dot, I think the best thing happened was we taking an entrepreneur route, starting out in Bangalore, placing our bets on tech and maintaining the edge. And always, I think, listening to our customers. I think one of the big things which we kind of always said that, look, the bread which we eat is given by our customers. And so not even an iota of arrogance ever came in the team. Very grounded, humble, always believed in solving problems through first principles. I think some of those are the things which has helped us to kind of create a niche for ourselves in the market. And the journey has been going on.
Well said. And what would you say are some of the innovative hiring strategies that Careernet has introduced in the market?
So, Ashwin, what we realized that recruitment is a very transactional and I would say very fragmented segment. And but there is still a huge ecosystem which can be created.
Right.
So, and that's what we kind of realized early that we need to be an ecosystem player than just a recruitment player. So, on one hand, we realized that our customers need great talent, and that is why they will come for. But when you really start hiring at scale, you realize that it is just not the oil which is important. It is the how the oil rigging happens also is very important. The process of rigging is how do you drill the wells? How do you really bring out the best talent? How do you create the plumbing lines by which the talent can move? So we in 2004-5 we started another brand called HirePro within Careernet, and we realized that probably assessment, campus recruitment, those are some of the areas which will essentially be very, very useful when we scale up. So that is, I think, another brand we created. Then in 2009, we realized that we have been hiring CXOs and leaders in our 10 years of our journey. But I think probably it needs a very separate brand, separate focus, a different methodology. We created a brand called Longhouse in 2009. And at that time, we realized that startups is going to be a big area within India. So we said we'll create a niche for ourselves within the startup community. So that's another thing which happened. Then in 2014-15, and if you see every 4-5 years, we have this itch of doing something new and that led to a whole ecosystem. In 2014-15, I and Rishi realized that there is a huge co-working space opportunity coming out because a lot of our customers who were coming about were not only looking for people, but also looking for space. Right. And we kind of incubated IndiCube within our Careernet, and that led to, and it's today one of the top 4-5 co-working managed office spaces business in the country. Yes. So that also led to that. So I think one led to another kind of a thing. But I think what we always ensured is we keep our head out, keep listening to our customers. And the other is we always felt that we are a problem solver. So it is not about that you need to be from this school of thought to come in, to go into that. So I think those are the things which led to, I would say, the evolution of the company today.
Well said. And you mentioned that you listen to your customers. What strategies do you employ to handle the dynamic and evolving needs of your clients?
So, today when you go to a customer may come to us for one specific need to begin with. But let's say a customer is trying to set up in India and they want to build up a small team of 15 people. That could be their primary goal to begin with. But as you move forward, you will realize that a customer will not only need just this, but they will need systems, they will need assessment, they will need campus hiring, they will need leaders. So what we have ensured that is we have created a very strong account management layers which are there. And these are the folks who are essentially to a degree married to the customers. And we let, I would say, the voice of the customer be heard very strongly within the company. And these are what we call as the customer brand ambassadors who will come, talk, and they will fight for the customer as if they are the customer. And we let those, I would say, conflicts and pitch battles to happen inside the company, because even though it may be our internal people, but we do not let the voice of the customer go about. So I think one of the most important thing I've realized is so far your customer is being heard, and you have a champion inside the company who is essentially voicing your customer. The likelihood is that you will be able to retain that customer in a very longer run. And then I think if you are a problem solver, you'll always be able to figure out something innovative for them.
Correct.
So, and I think that has helped us to kind of go deep with our customers, work closely with them. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Could you also explain the strategic importance of tech adoption? And I know that you and your brother are both IIT alumni. Tech adoption in Careernet's growth and operations.
So, essentially, if you see how our tech started out was essentially with the fact that we were opening up 2-3 more offices across the country. And we realized that how will we work as a one team? Because what we realized, Ashutosh, when we were starting out, there were bigger firms than us who had 8-10 locations, and every location was an independent unit by itself. Right. And they were not working as one team overall. And we realized that this is not the model to go about it. This is just like saying that, okay, you run your own shop and there's a henchman who will essentially have a cut coming in there. We said that is not the model. That is not an organization. So I think that led to the necessity of uniting our own team on one platform. Then we started realizing that a lot of our customers by themselves are not using tech a lot. They were essentially, and the biggest tool which we realized was the Excel and the Word were the most two prominent tools which were used. We said that it needs a large-scale recruitment system. And that essentially said that if we are building technology just for ourselves, why don't we take it to our customers? And that's when the our customers started experiencing technology. And then we realized that there are a lot of the candidates with whom we are interacting. They also need to be assessed. They also need to be interviewed. We should bring technology a lot with that. And that led to, so in a way, you can say that it is not just our team. We realized that our customers and our candidates all need to be coming on the same platform. And that led to the overall evolution of the technology. And that has obviously helped us to scale a lot to that degree.
Very interesting. And what role do you see, Anshuman, of AI playing in the future of recruitment? Because I've spoken to several people from the industry, and they seem to say that the next generation is really going to be using tremendous amount of artificial intelligence for even skill predictions.
So, I would say, look, Ashwin, AI is another tool. If I trace back our journey of 25 years, when internet was coming in, we realized that if we do not use internet well, we will probably be an archaic company. And there were firms who use it very well, and there were firms who didn't use it. Then social media came in. Then the whole cloud ecosystem came in. So I think these are all very solid productivity tools which are coming out. And AI is another one more, I would say, a very solid productivity tool. Maybe it has a multiplier effect of 100x, whereas some of the other things could have a multiplier effect of 10x. So truly to that point, I would say AI is something which we all need to get trained and how to use it. There are several use cases which we are right now using AI in our case. For example, just screening out the resumes in a better manner, just engaging with the candidates to a level of initial screening, generating question papers, we are using AI. So there are a lot of the places where we are already using AI. In fact, we have our cheat-proof proctored software, which is there. And we are using AI in a big way to ensure that how are we able to detect cheating in that whole case and trying to make examinations more cheat-proof to that degree. So I think AI, if you really see in recruitment, has multiple use cases. And I believe that it is going to make an average recruiter a far more smart recruiter. It is going to enhance productivity in a big way. It is also going to take away some of the jobs, but it is also going to create a lot of new jobs. It is also going to create a lot of new avenues together. As in, if you look at in India, we have like so many people which are there. So how do you make jobs accessible to a larger crowd? Unless until you don't have an AI, you can't make it very accessible to that degree.
Right.
So there are a lot of benefits, I would say. And but AI definitely is something which will change the course of how industry like recruitment has been functioning for the last 10, 15 years.
Well said. When I was preparing to talk to you, there was also this mention of Longhouse Consulting. How does Careernet approach leadership recruitment, especially within the startup sector through Longhouse Consulting? And what is the story behind the name?
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So, I'll tell you, we started the firm in 99, and since 2003-4, a lot of MNCs were setting up in India, and we were quite instrumental in hiring their leaders for India. And when we used to go out and bid for those leadership positions, we realized that we used to compete with some of the global firms. And we started realizing that some of these global firms have a special focus team which are only focused on senior leadership hiring and do not mix the regular hiring, and for a variety of reasons. One of the big reasons was the confidentiality aspect. How do you, in the different team, you do not let the information go out kind of a thing, because these are decision makers. So to that degree, there was definitely that itch that we need to kind of like think about doing this. Now, and it's a big boys club to that degree. They were like the big ones which are there. These are like mega global firms which have been there for 50 years. And we were like a new age firm. We thought that we may not be so very well accepted per se in a FMCG or a lot of traditional sectors. So we said that, okay, here is like a change of strategy. We should actually think about sectors which are yet to happen, and entrepreneurs who are taking risk. They will be the ones who will be ready to take a risk with us, with a new player like us. So we went about figuring out a network of those entrepreneurs. A lot of our mentors, a lot of our venture capital firms were very useful and very helpful in terms of connecting us to there. And I think the problem statement at that stage was very different. There was no really proven talent, Ashutosh, which was there. And we were able to kind of like figure out adjacent sectors. We were able to convince a lot of the folks to essentially leave their cozy jobs and join startups. And then, the results have come in, have been so great. So and then we got established, and then we started realizing that the big boys clubs are now coming in the startup space. So that led to the creation of overall the thesis of how Longhouse happened and why Longhouse was taken up. As far as the name is concerned, we did some research, and interesting thing is, Longhouse, essentially there used to be a original headhunting tribe. We call the Swazi tribe in the East Malaysian island, and they were essentially the original headhunters on earth. When I say original headhunters, it means that they used to like chop the head of their enemies and keep their skulls as trophies in their community halls, and those community halls used to be called Longhouse. And so what we said that, and who used to be the chieftain of that community is the person who had the maximum of trophies. So we said, look, I think the businesses which we are trying to build and working with are the businesses, these are not inherited businesses. These are the businesses which are demonstrated by your skills, and you have to essentially rise to demonstrate your skills to become the chieftain of or the leader of the team typically. So we took that name Longhouse from that inspiration and said that because our job was essentially called headhunting, so we said let's use that word as Longhouse and say that, and that's where they had a headgear of that chieftain, and the Longhouse logo, if you look, is the chieftain headgear of that tribe, which we said that.
No, why I asked you, Anshuman, this question was because one of America's most iconic presidents, Abraham Lincoln, his book was titled From Log Cabin to the White House. So
Okay.
I thought maybe you've taken that because that's where you can take people as from their careers.
Okay, no. So Longhouse was truly driven by this tribe, the story which I told to you. But yeah, I think every name has a story, so we
Absolutely.
picked up
I agree.
something. Yeah, but
So
yeah.
my next question for you, Anshuman, is how has Careernet contributed to promoting gender diversity and inclusion within the workplace?
So one of the things which we feel proud about our company, Ashutosh, we have about 65% female workforce working for us. So to that degree, we just not talk to our customers for building diversity. We ourselves first imbibe it.
Absolutely.
The other thing, I think if you look at diversity in India has a very different meaning. I don't think we need to take the global definition of D&I. What we have realized that in India, when you look at female labor participation, we are abysmally low at about 32%, whereas our overall labor participation in India is about 57, 58%, with male population being about 80% of labor participation. So I think one of the things which we realize that even if we can drive the agenda of saying that how the female labor participation from 30% can move to 50%, which will take India's labor participation from 55, 56% to 65%, which will be at par with some of the other countries. So I think that was one of the big focus areas which we realized that. And today when we really and how it started out for us, we have a focus group called Prism, which is there. It is only focused on D&I, and we conduct various events and sessions and workshops there. But I think if you really see, the female workforce labor participation was the biggest thing which essentially led to us to start this. And it was more driven by our own agenda because we had a lot of the females which were joining us. They used to take a break twice in their career. Once they were getting married and they were moving to locations where their husbands were there. And that for us led to, by the way, a lot of our offices getting opened up. We realized that somebody from Bangalore is looking to Delhi. We said, okay, now you'll be part of our Delhi team. Second, when they used to typically have go through the family way. And that time they used to have a much more larger breaks they are coming. So we conceived a whole program by which we are able to say that returning mothers program. So I think a lot of these things which we did internally, and then some of our customers asked us, and we said that, look, we'll be very happy to bring this as an external program. And that led to the program called the Prism within us. We have a very dedicated team. In fact, today, 25% of the hires which we make today are only female hires which are there. And there are firms which have hired almost more than 40% of the plus team in D&I. And in that, we provide a lot of, I would say, change of policies are there. We help companies to provide the infrastructure. Obviously, identifying the right talent is a big service we bring in. But I think there's a whole ecosystem which a company needs to create to ensure that how do we build diversity inside the company. But I think today it's a happy state to be in, Ashutosh. There's a lot of work yet to be done. But when I look at the last 15 years, there is a reasonable needle movement, I would say, which India has made in that direction.
Fantastic. So time for two more questions. How has your role as the CEO evolved as Careernet has grown from a startup to a leading industry player?
Well, Ashutosh, a founder is always an omnipresent one. And as I said, we were very lucky to have one of our very best core teams is still there with us. And that definitely has led us, helped me and Rishi to grow the company beyond the founders. Today, we have at least 15, 20 very solid leaders which are there. So I think when I look back my very early days, right from handling a customer to be an account manager, to be a person who is helping CEOs to navigate their career, I think we have now kind of taken up a job where we are helping to think about new expansion growth. We are thinking about how we can really improve upon the retention of the company. How can we build more brand for the company, whereas a lot of the day-to-day operations can come in. So I think to that degree, I would say role has definitely evolved a lot. But today, anywhere there is a crisis, we are there, kind of a thing.
Correct.
So I would say we to that degree still remain the backup for anyone. But the good thing is that there is a reasonable leadership team which has at least helped us to give a luxury of having a choice of what we want to do. But being an entrepreneur, I think the buck stops with you. So you have to be responsible for any good or bad inside the company. And that is how the 24/7, it's a 24/7 job still.
Absolutely. And my last question for you, Anshuman. As someone who's had an amazing career in technology recruitment, what trends do you see shaping the industry in the next few years?
So, definitely if you see technology, and we have been saying this, technology is not an end by itself. Okay. And while we had a $200 billion IT services industry and a $70 billion GCC industry in India, but when you look at the startups today in India, startups are not a technology business. They are a technology enabler. You look at in the last 10 years how startups have done from almost like 2-3 billion, they have an impact of almost 200-300 billion in the industry. And these startups are very tech-backed category. So I would say the technology as a end by itself is a big business in India, but technology as an enabler to create a far more 10x bigger opportunity is what I see that is a promise which holds for India. For us, we have been a lot in the forefront of the technology talent to that degree. So I do believe that we are also one of the very early adopters of the technology in the whole process. Within recruitment, I think the technology has a far more reaching effect, because for us, if we have to go global and think about an expansion in 100 countries, I think the only way to do about is having imbibing tech in a much more accelerated manner. I think that is one. And that is what I would say is the way forward for most of the businesses, because today, if you see, there are so many sectors where Indian companies are going and becoming global. And the only one of the big ways in which some of these businesses can expand is to kind of use technology, and which will open up the markets in a big manner for them. So I think that is how I see the role of technology coming in. Obviously, AI is one another big disruptor in the whole thing. And that, again, I would say has a far more positive impact, which India can generate through using AI. Because I think India being a back office, like if you rewind the story 10 years back, you will realize that India was the back office. But today, I don't think India is the back office. India is the front office of the world. So I think that story will only happen when the actual adoption of technology happen on the ground, essentially. So that's what my take on how the technology can do things for India.
Great response. On that note, Anshuman, thank you so much for speaking to me about what went into building Careernet. Had you gone off for your 3-year contract in New York, story may have been different. Thank you so much for speaking to me about so many different aspects of technology hiring, about where you have built Careernet, and some of your amazing policies that seem to have ensured that people have stayed with you for a very, very long period of time. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.